What's up, Internet, and welcome to the first ever J&J Double Play podcast. I am your host, Jack. With me is my good friend, colleague, and fellow wannabe sports analyst, Andy, or Jay. Wait, what's your name?
I'm Batman, but I guess for the sake of this podcast, I will go by Jay. And so how are you doing today, Jack?
I'm doing very good. I'm just excited to finally get this podcast up and running. So, Jay, why don't you tell us a little bit about what the J&J Double Play podcast is all about?
Gladly. So basically, Jack and I have been best friends for the last 5 years, and the one thing that we love to do is talk sports. So we figured, why not have a platform to speak all of our opinions, and maybe find other people who agree with us or disagree with us. I mean, that's the fun in this podcast. You never know what people are going to say.
Yep, and the other thing we have in common, we love our Cowboys.
No, we don't!
That's a conversation for another day. But Andy, why don't you tell us what we're going to start off the show with today?
Well, I thought we'd start off our show today talking about probably the biggest news going on, and that is LeBron James going to the Lakers. So, with LeBron going to the Lakers, how do you think this is going to affect the NBA?
I think this is a huge move for everything associated with the NBA right now, because right now the East is so far wide open that the Atlanta Hawks could put a run together to make the playoffs. I mean, I think this benefits mostly the Philadelphia 76ers, the Boston Celtics, and the Toronto Raptors, because those three teams wouldn't really have much of a shot at all winning the Eastern Conference without LeBron James being there, so to say.
And the thing you really got to look at the most now is the free agencies, because look at guys like Clint Capella. Chris Paul just signed that max deal. You really think the Rockets are going to want to keep him?
I think they definitely could keep him. It depends on what kind of suitors he gets, because right now the only offers I'm hearing for Clint Capella are the Lakers. From what I heard this morning, that the Lakers are willing to offer him a deal, but it's not really like the super max kind of deal that Phoenix was going to offer him before they drafted DeAndre Ayton with their first round pick. That being said, the Rockets have not a whole lot of cap room left really to sign anybody. And we'll get into the Rockets topic a little bit later on in the show. But right now, yeah, the free agency pool is just going to be, it seems like everyone's going to go westbound. And there's going to be a lot more money left over for the Eastern Conference teams to overpay players.
I mean, for sure. I mean, you look at top players like LeBron going to the West and Paul George now staying with Oklahoma City. But I think one of the other biggest signings is DeAndre Jordan. You and I both know how you feel about this, so why don't you let our listeners in on how you feel about the DeAndre Jordan situation?
Okay, first off, a little backstory for our listeners. I am a Dallas Mavericks fan. Call me what you want. I live in Houston, but I have grown up a Dallas Mavericks fan, and Dirk Nowitzki is my all-time favorite player. So, that being said, I was a little bit upset when DeAndre Jordan pretty much left us hanging in 2015, because we lost guys like Tyson Chandler and Monte Ellis to free agency so that way we could sign DeAndre Jordan. And lo and behold, he signs and then says, nah, I'm going to stay with Blake Griffin and Chris Paul in LA. And look what that turned out for him. So now I don't understand why Mark Cuban did this. Now he wants to go and offer him a 1-year, $24 million contract? For what? He's going to be our starting center, yeah, but at the same time, you can't play him in the third quarter. You can't play him in the fourth quarter because he's going to get in free throw trouble throughout the rest of the game. And if anything, he may stunt the growth of Luka Doncic and Dennis Smith Jr. going forward. This all reminds me of a certain analogy I wanted to use about DeAndre Jordan coming to the Mavericks. It's literally like if a girl you like said she was going to leave her boyfriend for you. So you break up with your current girlfriend only to find out that she was getting back with her ex the whole time. And now, 2 years later, that boyfriend is not exactly the best guy and doesn't want anything to do with her now. So now she goes back to you looking for a settlement. And that's what the Mavericks exactly did. They were the settlement for DeAndre Jordan. And it's just so frustrating to me because we just had Dennis Smith Jr. have a great rookie season. Probably should have at least had a little more Rookie of the Year contention. We just got arguably the best player in the draft in Luka Doncic to be to pair up with Dennis Smith Jr. in the backcourt to probably have a good backcourt in a couple years. And now DeAndre Jordan is going to stunt that growth because all he can do is catch lob passes, and that's not their game. That's my thoughts on DeAndre Jordan. But that's enough of DeAndre Jordan talk. I don't want to have another migraine right before the show ends. But let's go to another big basketball topic that's going on right now. We already established the fact that LeBron James has gone to the Lakers, but what other shockwaves could that be? And let's ask our resident Spurs fan about how he feels about the Kawhi Leonard situation going on in San Antonio.
I mean, there's really two parts to what the situation is. As a Spurs fan, I want Kawhi to stay, and I think he's one of the best players out there. But at the same time, you don't want a player who doesn't want to stay, because I feel like he won't give your max effort. And the Spurs are known to get max effort from players. And I don't want to say Kawhi is a quitter, because I know he got hurt all last year. But at the same time, you've been with this organization for so long. You won a championship. You were the champion MVP. And all of a sudden that changes for you because of what? Your own doubt? And I get it. You want to go play in LA. And I'm sure that's more of an incentive now since LeBron's there. But at the same time, like, I don't know. I want him to be in San Antonio. Like, I don't want him to feel forced he has to stay.
Yeah, I see your point, definitely. I think going forward, if he helps the Spurs with their downfall, I would be all for that. No. But in all seriousness, I think if he goes to LA, there's still this team just a little bit north of Los Angeles. Oh, I forgot. They're that blue and yellow team. Oh, yeah, the Golden State Warriors, who are still potentially going to dominate. It doesn't matter who LeBron James gets. If LeBron does get Kawhi Leonard, I mean, that will be great because LeBron James and Kawhi Leonard together could shut down two of the four big guys. So you could have a Kawhi Leonard shut down Durant and a LeBron James guard Klay Thompson, shut them down, force Curry to beat you. Or you can have a mismatch and then kind of have like LeBron guard Curry or LeBron guard whomever. But at the same time, as currently constructed, the Warriors are still the best team in the NBA.
And as you said right now, you have a two-man shutdown, but at the same time, you have the four best shooters in the NBA on that team. So even if you shut down two, the other two is wide open. Especially with Curry. As much as I don't like him, he's probably the best shooter in the game right now. And it sucks, because with Durant, as much as you don't like him, you got to respect his defense and his ability just to score getting to the paint.
Yeah, so as the Lakers roster is currently constructed, it is LeBron James, Kyle Kuzma, Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball. Yes, Lonzo Ball. Like, I'm sorry, I had to laugh at that too. And possibly Julius Randle as your center. I mean, that matchup, that's a bunch of people in their early 20s and LeBron James, who's 33. That could be a good roster going forward, but I think the first year of the Lakers, especially if they don't get Kawhi Leonard, their first year expectations are just going to be kind of a ho-hum. Let's just see what we can do. There's not a whole lot of pressure on LeBron right now. The only pressure I see is from actual Laker fans who, are the same as Dodger fans who expect a championship every year only to find out they're not exactly going to live up to that expectation.
So let's stop the Laker talk and let's talk about the team we actually, we live in Houston, so we do support the Rockets. They signed Chris Paul for 4 years. But as we saw in the championship series, they need a lot more than just Chris Paul because they missed 27 straight threes. They weren't driving into the paint. I mean, James Harden tried to do it all himself, and I hate to say it, but the MVP wasn't clutch. So what do you think they could do to improve without trying to go sign someone big?
And that's an excellent point you made about the lack of three-point shooting percentage in that game. That pivotal Game 7 was pretty much, it seemed, the downfall of the Rockets in that whole series. Had they would have made maybe I would say 6 or 7 of those 27 missed, we'd probably be having a whole different conversation right now as far as NBA free agency and anything NBA related right now. But losing Trevor Ariza was huge. He signed a 1-year deal for $15 million to play for the Phoenix Suns. I mean, good for him. He got his money. He's already got a ring. So him playing for the Rockets was just kind of something to do. And now he's getting a lot more money to play for a lot worse team. What I can see happening internally is if we re-sign Clint Capella, that's probably our number one priority right now. And you already re-signed Gerald Green to a veterans minimum. I mean, good for him. I know he wanted to take the hometown discount. What I see happening is either Gerald Green or PJ Tucker will go into the small forward role when Trevor leaves. So what I could see happening is if they re-sign Clint Capella, he will be our starting center. Ryan Anderson moved to power forward, and then that would leave PJ Tucker to be our starting small forward. The other option I could see happening is if we re-sign Luke Mahamute to a smaller contract and have him be our starting small forward and have Gerald Green come off the bench and replace him.
All right, so let's talk about a sport that's actually in season right now, and a sport you and I both love to go watch, love to just watch on TV, and that's baseball.
But more importantly, let's talk about our baseball team. I'm talking about the current World Series champions, and according to ESPN's Power Ranking Index, the number one team in baseball, the Houston Astros. But not all is well in Houston. In fact, you might say, Houston, we may have a problem. After a bad weekend series against the Tampa Bay Rays, the Astros lost 3 of the 4 games against that team and lost 3 straight to the Tampa Bay Rays with guys like Verlander, Garrett Cole, and Charlie Morton, arguably our 3 best pitchers pitching. So I got to ask you, Andy, do you think the Astros should be worried about this 3-game losing streak they had to the Tampa Bay Rays?
Collectively as a whole, I shouldn't be worried. You look at the pitching. Pitching wasn't the problem. The problem was our offense. Yeah, Verlander gave up 5 runs, and that's not good from our ace. But at the same time, how many times did he give up 1 run, 0 runs, and we couldn't give him any offense? Now it was exasperated more because of how many runs he gave up. But at the same time, you have a guy like Charlie Morton who went almost 7 innings shutout ball, and the bullpen blew that one. But at the same time, it wouldn't have been an issue if the offense would have came alive. They scored 1 run. And collectively, they scored 4 runs for the first 3 games and then scored 2. And that was because of Evan Gattis. So what I would be more concerned with is the bats coming alive. Because you had a guy like George Springer who was batting almost 300 maybe 2 weeks ago. Now he's down to 254. And he's 1 for his last 34. You have a guy like Marwin, who was our RBI leader last year, always came through in big situations. He's batting 230 with maybe 11 RBIs. So it's not necessarily the pitching I'm worried about because, let's face it, the Astros have the best rotation in baseball. I mean, our number 5 is better than most number 1s. So am I worried about the team? No. I think they just need to get back into their groove like they did last time.
You bring up an excellent point with our offense, especially George Springer. So that leads me to this next question. Do you think that either Alex Bregman should be moved to the leadoff spot, or should George Springer just be moved down in the lineup entirely?
Well, the leadoff hitter is supposed to get on base. That is their job. And so far, Alex Bregman is the one getting on base. I mean, you saw how he was last week, where he was, I believe, 18 for 26, and he just won Player of the Month. You look at a guy like Springer, who, as I said before, is 1 for his last 34. And I think moving him down would be a good thing for him. That way it takes the pressure of trying to lead off the game with base hit, home run. Because I feel that's what he's been trying to do. He's been taking big swings when he doesn't have to. And getting on base doesn't necessarily mean you have to get a hit. Like, you look at Alex Bregman. He has 49 walks. That leads the team on OPS.
Yeah, to piggyback off your point about Alex Bregman, his walk rate has one of the best in baseball right now. And look at the way Alex Bregman started the season. He was batting under 200, and he was the guy getting moved down in the lineup. He was hitting in the 6 or 7 spot until his walk rate just went up, and he was either walking or just getting on base however he could, and that's what a prototypical leadoff hitter should be. So to answer that question, I would say try to move Bregman to leadoff and Springer to the 2-hole. So that way you can get a guy like Alex Bregman to get on base and have George Springer be the power hitter he wants to be. And another thing about the offense, right now Carlos Correa was in a big funk before he went on the disabled list. So you could potentially look to see if George Springer has any injuries as well and put him on the disabled list. That way you can have an extended time with Alex Bregman as your leadoff hitter to really see how that will work out. And when Springer and Correa come back from their DL stints, theoretically, their offense should be clicking again as normal.
Because they're playing teams like Texas, the White Sox, the Tigers, even the A's, who the Astros have dominated this year. There should be a good run to get a little bit of separation from the Mariners, because the Mariners have to play the A's and the Angels, teams that have been pretty decent against them, and we don't have to play big-time teams right now. That way, we can rest our good players and get them back to 100%, so during the All-Star break, they can come back and fully get functional.
You brought up the Mariners, so I'll go ahead and ask you this question as well. Currently, I would say our two biggest rivals in the American League going forward are the Yankees and the Red Sox with the way they've been playing. Do you see the Mariners as a legitimate threat to dethrone the Astros this season?
Well, to me, with the Mariners, it's the same book written again. Because you've seen this from them before, where they start hot and then fade out after the All-Star break. As good as they've been playing, which is surprising me, because I thought once Robinson Cano went down and got suspended, I thought that was it for them. But to their credit, they keep winning. And I think they've been winning more since Robinson Cano went down. But at the same time, how long can this last? How long can their bullpen be this shut down? How long can James Paxton keep throwing lights out ball? How long can guys like D. Gordon and Denard Span and Gene Segura keep up the torrid pace they've been on? So I don't think they're as much as a threat as someone like the Yankees, like the Red Sox, are to the Astros. I mean, when it comes down to it, you look in September, who has the best overall team? And I still think the Astros have a better team than the Mariners, by far.
Albeit that as it may, I still think this should be a precautionary tale for the Astros. Because remember what happened in 2015. Now, I'm not in no way comparing our current team to the 2015 team, because this team is a lot better. But remember back in 2015 when the Astros had a pretty solid lead in the AL West, and the Rangers, they weren't far behind, but they were a good amount of games behind. I would say 10 to 12 games behind in June. But somehow, someway, the Rangers just got on this hot pace, and eventually, in head-to-head matchups, they just kept beating the Astros, and it eventually led to them winning the division and not settling for the wild card. Now, we still got into the playoffs, but I would much rather be a division champion than a wild card champion.
You bring up a good point there, but at the same time, look at that Ranger team compared to this Mariner team. They started slow and then got hot because of the acquisitions they got that year. They got Cole Hamels, which I think was probably the biggest acquisition for them. I mean, you look at guys like King Felix. He's struggling this year. He's supposed to be their number one ace. I think James Paxton has taken over that role. So unless the Mariners get someone big at the trade deadline, like, for example, Cole Hamels, maybe I'll be worried by them. But right now, there's still plenty of time in the season. There's still plenty of games to go. And I think the Astros will be fine. They just need to shake off this last series and focus on Texas tomorrow and for the rest of the year.
All right, and that will do it for our baseball talk, and that will do it for our first podcast. I thank you guys for listening. Come check us out. We're going to start doing weekly podcasts starting next week of July 8th. We're going to try to do them every Monday, but we will definitely have a podcast once a week. So again, appreciate you guys for listening. Take care. Go Astros.